Focus on the fight against corruption and state capture now. Many companies have caused significant damage and costs to South Africa while scoring hundreds of millions of rand through their dubious dealings with state entities and government departments. Yet there has been no sanction or ban applied to them, except Bain and Company. This is the opinion of Wayne Duvenage, the CEO of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. National Treasury, as you'll know, last month banned Bain and Company from government contracts for 10 years. Treasury says this is for engaging in corrupt and fraudulent practices related to a SARS contract. Duvenage joins me now live to talk about the inconsistencies that he is pointing out in as far as this matter is concerned. Wayne, first things first, let's get this out of the way and clarify it, because at a cursory glance, as I read your opinion piece on News 24, my immediate instinct was to say, hang on, is Wayne saying that Bain and Company should not have been banned from doing business with government? That's not what you are saying, is it?
No, not at all. What we're saying is that there needs to be consistency. You know, we've had companies like McKinsey, KPMG, SAP, Hitachi, ABB, the list goes on, who actually scored a lot more money than Bain, were very involved in dubious dealings until they got away with it, or they couldn't get away with it until they were caught out. And yet no sanction is applied to them. But we need to go even further than that. At what stage are the doors open for business again? And in the piece, I spell out about 9 steps, because one needs to understand that 1 or 2 people in senior positions in these organizations create chaos for many lives and many brands that have been built up over time. And until business starts to sanction properly and go after the individuals who caused the rot in the first place, then we have a problem. And what we find is that so often these individuals who created the problem are just allowed to leave. There's been no sanction, no hearing, no dismissal, no charges laid against them, no delinquent directed charges. And in fact, some of them even get a golden handshake to leave the organization. And that's where we need business to start playing a proper and meaningful role when it comes to strong accountability.
Yeah, and you are not saying, are you, Wayne, that until government starts meting out this kind of consequence with the other companies that you mentioned, they should have held off on meeting these consequences out on Bain and Company? Put differently, you are not saying that there should first be a system that ensures consistency, that the penalties are the same for the same types of egregious violations of ethics. Until we have that, we can't act against Bain.
Yeah, no, exactly. So what we are saying is that that business has a role to play, and they tend to look away. They should not be waiting for government sanctions. They should be going after these individuals who created the problem within those companies. Those individuals, and usually it's a handful of them, create the problem for so many people. And we see it. We see people advertising, going for jobs, and their CVs are blank for 2 years when they worked at KPMG, for instance. And when you ask them, why is your CV blank? What do you do for 2 years? They said, well, if I put that I'd worked for KPMG or McKinsey in there, I might not have even got around to the first round of interviews. But you can turn that around as a business if you become proactive in your approach to dealing with individuals until you become a good corporate citizen by implementing so many other steps which they fall short of. And that's the problem. So what you have is these directors recycling themselves, finding their way into other businesses, finding their way into other boards, continuing their corrupt and dubious conduct and activities. And that's why business is missing in action when it comes to dealing with this matter more effectively.
So there are a few actions that you suggest should be inserted into the process as we build consistency into it, Wayne, and you call them meaningful accountability actions. There are quite a number that you've listed, but there are a few that I'd like you to highlight that I find quite interesting. You talk, for instance, around the organization itself being proactive in ensuring that criminal charges and disciplinary processes are undertaken, but also instructing lawyers to press on civil proceedings as well as issues of delinquent directorship.
Yes, no, exactly. So, what we often find is that they'll start a disciplinary hearing, then the individual will resign and they just abandon the disciplinary hearing. So on the records of that individual in that company, you'll find that they had resigned when it should read that they were dismissed, because there are very often people that want to get references to want to understand why they left the organization. And that now falls away. And then they have transgressed the Companies Act. They need to have charges laid against them. The only people that can bring those charges are the people who have standing in these matters, and that is the businesses, the corporate entity themselves and their leadership. And then they're also delinquent. They fall into the category of being charged and labeled as delinquent directors in the CIPC book, so they can never apply for director roles again. And unless business starts to follow through, they become part of the problem of allowing individuals just to escape accountability, escape the consequences of their bad behavior, and then the company just apologizes to government and the country, they pay back the money, and they continue to do business. That is not acceptable to civil society. We want businesses to play a far more meaningful role than they currently are when it comes to holding those delinquent directors to account.
Yeah. So just from the reasoning in your article, then, I believe that your argument amounts to there are others that should either be banned from doing business with government or have to undertake these steps. Care to name some of them?
Yes, as I say in the article, McKinsey, KPMG, SAP, Hitachi, ABB, all of these companies, by the way, have earned millions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of rands. They've paid the money back, they've apologized, and they've allowed their directors to move on. Some of them have introduced reparations and some form of putting in processes to ensure this doesn't happen again, but that's not good enough. Yeah. They should go after the individuals who put these organizations into this space, because what happens is those companies now have to downsize. Government won't do business with them, and in Bain's case, they've now been banned from doing business. Other companies shy away, and they have to downsize. People lose their jobs as a result. The brand becomes tarnished. So these companies need to do far more than what they are.
So I'm interested then, Wayne, as a final question on this point, what you make of a company like EOH, for example. We witnessed their testimony and their assistance to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry and them outlining some of the steps that they had taken. Is that the model that you are talking about? Because if I remember correctly, they have been pressing charges against the former people who were involved in the management.
Yeah, and Stephen van Coller and the entity at EOH, which I didn't mention in here because I think they are one of the few organizations that have gone down that road. They've taken on those people that created the problem. They've laid charges against them. We wish they would do a little bit more by going and laying civil claims of delinquency directors, because when a court rules that somebody has been a delinquent director, those individuals cannot sit and cannot apply to be directors on boards again for at least 7 years, sometimes for life. That's the type of accountability and the consequences that we want meted out against those individuals. So, yeah, EOH is probably one of the organizations that's gone the furthest amongst those that have been found wanting. And, we need more of that.
Lastly, Wayne, let me just shift the conversation altogether. Gauteng has a new premier, Panyaza Lesufi. And like his predecessor, the gantries were among his first issues that he was going to address. Basically, he's now tasked his new Treasury MEC, Jacob Mamabolo, to find a solution, to ensure that find another funding mechanism for the infrastructure upgrades. The e-tolls must go. I don't even know how to ask you this question, Wayne. You take it in any direction you want.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's quite strange. Jacob Mamabolo was the MEC for Transport under David Makura's premiership. And he was also tasked then. But quite frankly, this is a national competence. And the SANRAL is a national roads agency. It is financed through national funding mechanisms. It is not a decision that can be attributed to the province. Of course, the province had to agree or disagree with e-tolls in the first place, and they agreed under Nomvula Mokonyane back then. So, yeah, this is a little bit of a farce. I think they know that the decision is coming this month. And they might say, well, it was as a result of Panyaza Lesufi's decision to task Mamabolo to do something. That's not going to fly. I mean, the reality is this is a political matter. It comes up, it raises its head when there are political changes and dynamics taking place. I can't see how the province can find any financial solution for SANRAL's needs. I mean, these bonds were government guaranteed bonds at a national level, not at a provincial level. So it really is just hot air and meaningless talk.
Yeah. Did I hear you correctly saying the decision is coming this month? The number of times I've heard that line, Wayne, you and I know. I'm inclined to even say there is no decision coming this month.
Yeah, well, you know, I think of all the times we've heard that the decision is imminent is the recent ones, and that's because of the various matters that have been discussed. And, you know, the midterm budget policy statement is coming out on the 26th of October. And there have been various iterations around a decision has to be made. They cannot keep kicking this can down the road because 15% of people are still paying in businesses and they are uncompetitive. And this decision has been hanging in limbo for far too long. If they don't make the decision, then, well, you know, then, but as I've always said, the decision has been made already by the public. They're not paying and government can do nothing about it. So, yeah, this is just rhetoric, quite frankly, by Panyaza Lesufi.
If I can be cheeky and ask you which one is your favorite near miss of a solution. For me, it was Fikile Mbalula at some point saying that his media briefing on e-tolls was going to be the biggest news event because a decision was imminent. Decision was going to be made. I think it was around Easter 2 years ago or something. And I remember thinking, oh, can this guy just find another cause? Because honestly, there is no decision that's coming. Which one would be your favorite?
Yeah, well, the favorite one was Jacob Mamabolo, I think it was June last year, said, look, the decision on e-tolls has already been made. And I think he knew something, and we all know that that decision from a cabinet point of view has been made. There's no other decision they can make but to scrap it. And he was quickly slapped into place by the Minister of Transport back then, saying it's not for you to make this decision, it's for the national bodies like Transport and Treasury. So, yeah, this thing has been thrown around for so long now, it's become a joke.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely ridiculous. Wayne Duvenage, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights here on eNCA. He is from the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. The belief is that there could be a decision somewhere in the horizon. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it.